Now, your table is ready. Join 13 ABC's Jeff Smith with the decision makers of Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. This is the Roundtable.
Hi there, good Sunday afternoon to you. Thanks so much for spending some time with us once again here on the Roundtable program. My name's Jeff Smith. We are getting into the waning days of April. Hard to believe, May right around the corner. As we start to say goodbye to this month, it can't be said that we have gone through a tragic and emotional month with what happened in Boston, the terror in Boston. And not since the days of the movie 1984 or the book that came out, the George Orwell book that talked about this totalitarian society where Big Brother was always watching over you, have we had discussions about video surveillance like we did this past couple of, in fact, like we have these past couple of weeks. And the talk about surveillance cameras, video cell phones, all of that being under the watchful eye at all moments. It opened up the doors to conversation that we wanted to have here on the Roundtable today. Wanted to introduce my guest to you. First, from Lucas County Sheriff's Department, Lucas County Sheriff John Tharp. Welcome.
How are you doing? Thank you
very
much.
well. I appreciate you taking the time. And also Jelani Jefferson Exum. She is an associate professor of law at the University of Toledo College of Law. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Also with us today, Jim Bigelow. He is of Bigelow Security Incorporated over in Sylvania Township. Jim, good to see you. And also Sheriff Kyle Overmeyer from Sandusky County. Welcome.
To be here. Thank you.
Let's open up the conversation. And from an aspect of, I guess, what is at the ready, what is at access to us at this point, Sheriff Tharp, when you look at having tools like what we see used in Boston, and as soon as this happened, immediately, in this day and age, they went to the surveillance video, like what you see here on your screen. They said, we may, in that crowd, before this bombing happened, have pictures of the suspects we're looking for. So, was it right, is it right in this day and age to go to this extent to use what we have at the ready?
I certainly think it is. In fact, I believe we were very, very lucky that the Lord Taylor building had the cameras there that they were able to tap into and use to be able to identify these two individuals. Anything that we can use, as long as it's legal and we're not violating people's constitutional rights, to safeguard folks from losing their arms and legs and being killed. When we look at our own family, is that if we would have a family member that was shot, killed, or arms lost through terrorist activities, I'm sure that everybody would be wishing that we had had some cameras if we could have deterred that and or stopped that.
As you and I discussed, as far as where Lucas County, the Sheriff's Department, police presence exists, the deputies out in the community. Sylvania obviously has its own police department. Sylvania Township, its own police department. We have seen what the city of Toledo has done with its Sky Cop program, putting up these cameras. But as an all-encompassing, I guess, law enforcement agency over Lucas County, do you see the need to do like what Toledo has done and get more of a video presence outside of just the major metropolitan hub?
For right now, what we're doing is that we're utilizing resources around the community. There's many, many businesses that we work with, and we're doing community policing. They have video. If there's occasions where we have a crime area that needs to be targeted, need to be looked at aggressively, I would see the need to do that. But for right now, what we're doing is that we're working with all the businesses and schools that have the video cameras, and we're able to utilize that.
Sheriff Overmeyer, as you look at what's happening here in the Toledo area, and how much are you guys using video surveillance? How much do you need to do it more?
Well, like the sheriff said, we utilize the businesses as well. We are more of a rural area. Of course, we do have some. Fremont is our county seat. It's a bigger city. We don't have what Toledo has, but we work with the businesses, and so far, so good. We have been successful, and they do help you solve crimes. And you know, of course, they're not really there. That's not what they're there for. They're there to protect their business, but in turn, then they're helping out law enforcement as well. And to go back to what the sheriff said, I think with constitutional rights, if it's you know, the main thing, thank God they had those cameras there, because it was for security and protection. And you know what? It came back and it helped us, and help those family members have some closure.
At the time Sky Cop was going up in Toledo, Jelani, as we look at, he mentioned constitutional rights, and there were some people, it ruffled some feathers when they started going up, putting in these areas where they saw crime as a problem. But as you see more and more of this Orwellian feel to Big Brother's always watching, or somebody's always watching, is it just the day and age we're in and we just got to live and deal with it? Or are there definite rights being, I guess, stepped upon?
I mean, I think to a certain extent this is the day and age that we're living in. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution gives us the right to be secure in our persons, houses, and effects from unreasonable searches and seizures. Mm-hmm. But the Supreme Court has taken that term unreasonable and basically said it's not unreasonable unless you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. That's an evolving term, and as the court looks at it, things that you do out in public that other people can see, you don't have an expectation of privacy. I don't have an expectation of privacy walking down the street because people see me. So the fact that police officers are using cameras to track that movement, so far it hasn't been seen as a constitutional invasion.
For years, in fact, for the last couple of years, and guys, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have had cameras on police cruisers that are able to check license plates, whether or not you know it's happening or not, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's something like that, and just watching people walking around versus seeing them drive around, same thing?
And it's a similar analysis, right? When I'm driving down the street, people can see my license plate. So if officers record it to use it in their investigations, they haven't infringed upon any sort of right. Now this, there are sort of the sticky areas of officers can really only tail you so long or track you so long, and when they start to do things that perhaps are really outside of human capability, like putting a GPS tracker on your car to track you for hours and hours and weeks, now we're into something different. But the walking out on the street, the taping of your license plate, everybody else can see that. And the Supreme Court
I don't know if our director Brian Mahalik has shown it yet, but I wanted to show you some surveillance video from Philadelphia, which came in the last couple of months. This is of a robbery and a shootout that happened in the city, and this is once again surveillance video set up at a business. You can see the suspect out on the sidewalk trying to get into this building, and an absolute shootout just taking place. Jim, you have been in the security business for years. People are more and more using cameras, you told me.
Absolutely. I don't know if it's really increased so much on the commercial end of it, but it's really increasing on the residential end of it. Mm-hmm. We've been doing businesses for years, just like what you just saw on the tape there. We've been doing those since I've been in the industry, really over 20 years. Yeah. But we're really starting to see a lot more of it in the residential market, is where we're starting to see the big increase. And most businesses now have some form of a system in their buildings right now.
I don't need you to get into specific cases, but generally speaking, when people are coming to you wanting to put up cameras in their homes, it's not so much, I want to check on the babysitter, or maybe it is, but are they coming to you saying, my safety is of concern to me and I want to have every resource available, so I'm going to put cameras up?
I'd say most of the residential reasons are some sort of a domestic issue, maybe a neighbor, something like that. There's usually an event.
Had a break-in, maybe?
Right. There's usually an event that triggers it.
Okay.
It's generally not somebody calling up just saying, "Hey,
so
I just
it's
want
reactive versus proactive.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a lot of that, but we're getting more of, I just want to look and see what's going on. I just want to be able to be at work, pull up on my computer, pull up on my smartphone, pull up on my tablet. I just want to look and just make sure everything's okay at the house. So we're starting to get more of that, but for a while it was always reactive. But now I guess people are just starting to want to just generally want to know what's going on.
And we want to put it in relative terms. It's obviously an investment, but you were telling me that the price, as far as what you're paying to put something like this in, it has gone down substantially over the years.
Oh yeah, we used to get a phone call 5-6 years ago and somebody would say they want a camera system in their house, and we'd be like, okay, this is a waste of time, because we knew they wouldn't want to invest the money. We were talking $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So we'd kind of try to price condition them on the phone just to see if they were serious or not. Right. Where now we're putting in burglar alarm systems, including video surveillance, for under $500. Yeah. And that's including a burglar alarm system too. Right. So the cost has come down, so more people can afford it. So now more people are starting to think about, hey, I should just have one of these, and planning, just doing it before there's an incident rather than after, because it's more affordable. And everybody sees it on TV nowadays. You see the TV commercials all the time where, the kids are coming home and mom or dad's at work and they see them coming in on the computer screen, oh, a happy day, children are home. Yeah. So people are thinking about it a lot more because it's being advertised more.
And that's something that obviously, and we've seen it here in Toledo. There have been some cases with porch cams, that surveillance outside the house, as you were saying. There have been crimes committed. But are those directly usable as long as the homeowner turns them over to you? Or how does that whole thing work, Sheriff?
Well, we would certainly use them. We would use them for identifying suspects. We would use them to be able to question others, and we would do our best then to bring that into the court of law. Now, if it were objected to, then that would have to be dealt with the judges. But we would do what we would think is right, and what we think is right is that to utilize whatever resources it is that we have to protect the citizens.
Police officers, sheriff's deputies cannot be everywhere at every time, every one single place in time. So obviously every outlet that is out there, you guys have to use.
We're going to take it. We're going to take it no matter what. If it gets thrown out of court, they can never say we didn't try.
Yeah.
And like the sheriff said, if it's there, we're going to use it. If it can solve a crime, absolutely. And to get back what he was saying, I think a lot of people are putting security systems in their home, not only because they're not as expensive, but you know what? In the back of their mind, they can go away, they can relax with their family, and they know that they have it on there and they're safe.
And it has to be a deterrent.
Exactly.
It really does.
It
It
is.
has to be a deterrent.
It is.
I know people have talked about they put fake cameras in their on their property and just had a battery and a red light beeping, and individuals coming around, they see that, they don't know if it's a camera or not, a real camera or not, just like the alarm systems. There's folks that put stickers in the windows.
It's the
they don't
modern
even have
day
an alarm
beware
system.
of dog sign in your window that you don't have a dog.
And before I was a sheriff, I was a detective. I can remember interviewing burglar suspects, and I said, "What kept you away from certain homes?" And they would always say, because they had the sign up. And that sign forewarned them, like the beware a dog, don't go there. So you know what? Why take the chance and gamble?
From a legal...
So maybe if he'd sell the community some signs.
I don't think he's going to take that advice, because he's got to stay a viable business. I know that. But Jelani, when there were a couple of things that were brought up in that exchange, talking about not only using the video equipment at home, but also being able to use it as a law enforcement agency. Are we infringing upon any legal realm there?
Well, what I think is interesting, and the Boston bombing incident really brings this to light, is that the surveillance that was used was private surveillance, right? And so there is a distinction, and constitutionally, legally, there's a distinction between what private citizens can do and what the government can do. So the Fourth Amendment and whether or not officers need a warrant before surveilling, that's really talking about government action. Private citizens can put up security cameras, stores, gas stations, all of the cameras that were used in the Boston bombing incident, those were put up by private companies for private surveillance, and there was no constitutional issue there at all. And so it's an interesting sort of law enforcement technique and tool to use. It really just becomes another witness, right? It's like going out and talking to witnesses. And so there's a big difference when we think about Big Brother and Big Brother is watching us between a private company, which we all expect, right? We expect to see security cameras in stores and gas stations, and that really feeds into the constitutional issue of what are reasonable expectations of privacy of what the government can do as well.
But then when you look at it as in terms of having those cameras set up in your house, let me ask again, having fake cameras up, is that, are you breaking any laws doing that?
Not as far as I know.
Not as far as you know, but when you look at, Jim and I were having the conversation. He was talking about people setting these up, the potential. We've heard the term nanny cam used to spy. And I'll use the word spy because essentially that's what it's doing. When you don't tell somebody it's up and then you leave home, it's hidden somewhere along those lines. Are we getting into a day and age where you're going to have to get a release signed before somebody comes into your property knowing that, yes, I have cameras, yes, I may use the video against you at some point?
Right. I don't think we're there quite yet, but I would say that people should be cautioned against the way they use these cameras because there is a line, and once you cross that line, you might be getting into actually recording things that should be private. So, people sort of in private settings like bathrooms and that sort of thing, You know, setting up a nanny cam in your home, probably not going to be a huge problem. If your nanny lives at the home and you have it set up in the shower, that's a different story.
Okay.
You know?
Keep it right there. We're going to continue this conversation on the other side. Obviously, what we found out in Boston, and we didn't need Boston to tell us that everybody's got a camera these days on their cell phone. Where are the lines as far as everybody being that cell journalist? Stay with us. We'll be right back.